You're listening to the Heart Lessons podcast with me, Sarah Rieke. Real women, real stories, real faith. Hi, friend, and thank you for joining me today on the Heart Lessons podcast. I think God frequently whispers to us in a still small voice the truths we will need to lead us on the road He has for us. I found it to be true in my life, and I'm sure you found it to be true in yours as well. These are our heart lessons. And here on the Heart Lessons podcast, I want to find wonderful people who love the Lord and walk with Him and are willing to share their heart lesson with us to allow us the opportunity to draw closer to Him. Joining me today on the Heart Lessons podcast is my friend Pami Clark. She goes to the same church as some of my family in Pennsylvania, and she first reached out to me a few years ago to let me know that she was praying for me during my journey with Evie. Since then, I have been blessed with the details of her story and her faith through the difficult road the Lord has her on. About 5 years ago, Pami suffered a massive stroke that severely impacted her physical and cognitive abilities. Since then, she's had about 12 strokes, maybe more, and doctors predict that this pattern will continue throughout the rest of her life. But Pami's testimony remains strong. She has such a tender heart towards the Lord and talks about all the good that has happened as a result of these strokes. She also shares a unique and challenging perspective of what it means to live every day knowing it might be your last. I'm so grateful Pami was willing to share her heart with me, and I think you're going to be blessed by her words. So here's what Pami had to say. Well, Pami, thank you so much for chatting with me tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me to.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story, and I'm excited to actually finally get to chat with you because we've been Facebook friends for several years now, and so it's fun to actually hear your voice and talk like kind of face to face. So, yeah, and in our Facebook friendship, you've been so kind and encouraging to me, just to always post stuff on my wall and share for prayer requests for me, and after Charlie passed away, you were always posting just songs and verses, and it was just so sweet. So thank you for doing that. That was really, really nice.
Oh, I hope it encouraged you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and even just the fact that I knew you were thinking about me, just I don't know, that meant a lot. So thank you very much. So, okay, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do these days and your family and all those kinds of things.
Okay. My name is Pam Clark. I'm 43. I have two small kids, Macy, 8, and Micah is 5. And I'm married. What else can I say?
For how long? How long have you guys been married?
Oh, actually, tomorrow's our 9th anniversary.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. It's been a long 9 years, but it's good. It's good. I don't have a job anymore, so I just I do my own thing pretty much all day. But I don't know what to say about what I do.
You work, but you don't get paid for it, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Like every other stay-at-home mom, I guess. But I'm not even really a stay-at-home mom. My kids are at daycare, so I don't really think I qualify as a stay-at-home mom either. But I'm home and I'm a mom, so I guess that counts for something.
Does. I think it does. So, what I wanted to chat with you about your story, which I think is just a crazy story and just so incredible how you're still thriving. So would you tell me about your first experience with having a stroke? Would you just go ahead and walk me through that?
Okay. I had just given birth to my son Micah 2 weeks earlier, and so they said it might have had something to do with that because your blood is thicker then, and so if you have an artery dissection or something, it can easily clot your blood. But I didn't know anything about that at the time. I had no idea what a stroke even was. I never once thought about it, so it didn't occur to me that was going on. But I was getting my daughter Macy dressed for church. It was a Sunday morning, and I was trying to put her arm in the sleeve of her shirt, and I wasn't matching up, and I couldn't get it to work. It was something I did all the time, every day of my life, and I couldn't get it to work. So then I called my husband into the room saying, I can't get her arm in the sleeve, but that is not what I actually said. I said something more like gobbledygook or something like that, but it didn't make any sense to him. So then he asked me to sit down for a minute, and then I sat down and I heard Micah screaming in the next room. So I went up to go get him just as an instinct, and I immediately fell to the ground. My left side would no longer move. I couldn't do anything with that side of my body. I couldn't move my hands, my arms, my legs, nothing. So I'm just laying on the floor, just helpless, and Jeremy's looking at me and he's wondering, what do I do? What's going on? So he got me into a chair, and then he called my best friend, Mark, who's also the pastor at our church, and he said, well, call 911. Don't call me. Call 911. So then he called the hospital, and they came and got me right away. And I don't think I lost consciousness until I got to the hospital, but okay. I couldn't speak to anyone. I just heard my daughter in the background screaming, I love you, Mommy. And I was trying to say, I love you back, but it wasn't coming out that way. So they loaded me into the ambulance, and all I really remember about that time is that I kept trying to get my arm to move. I was focused so much on my fingers, trying to get them to move, that the time just flew by, and I was at the hospital. And then things get very, very fuzzy. I don't remember very much. I remember my husband holding my hand when I was on the stretcher getting ready to go in for surgery or getting ready to go back there, someplace, some room I was going back to. And he was holding my hand, and then that's it. Then life as I knew it was at that moment over for me, just as simple as that.
Yeah. In just a few minutes.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And then I woke up in the hospital at some point. I had my own morphine button, so I was heavily using that a whole lot. So I don't remember much about my hospital stay at all. Yeah. But it was about 5 or 6 days I was in the hospital, and I had started off with a really, really bad headache in the ICU. It was a really bad headache, and then I was remembering people coming and staying and talking to me, but I don't remember actually saying anything to anyone there. I don't remember actually speaking a word in the hospital until the very end. But I'm sure that I did a little bit, but not much. So then the one key thing I do remember is that my mom was standing above my bed, and I remember thinking to myself, that's my mom. That isn't something you tell yourself ever, that's my mom. You don't have to say that to yourself. Oh, my mom's here. Oh, that's my mom. Yeah. And it occurred to me that I knew that was her, but I didn't have any actual memory of anything. I couldn't remember anything about being a kid. I couldn't remember anything at all. So that was a little bit freaky. But, then I would talk to other people that came in, and I guess I sounded normal. And so I was trying to sound as normal as I could sound, because I figured that would get me out of the hospital faster.
Oh, right.
So I'm like, just do everything that seems normal. Yeah. Just act normal, be normal, and you'll get to go home. So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to lie my way out of the hospital, I guess. But, and it worked. On the 6th day, I went home, and it was so hard. Actually, the day that I left the hospital, I was in the bathroom getting myself ready to leave, and I saw a hairdryer, and I remember thinking, what do you do with that? What is that? How do you use that? What is that for? And so that's kind of where my head was at back then. I didn't know what certain things were. I couldn't understand every sentence that I heard. I had to take long breaks to process everything that somebody said to me. It took me about 10 seconds just to process one sentence, and by the time I processed it, they were already on their 6th or 7th one. So I felt very behind. Right from the beginning, I felt like I was off the mark with everybody else. I couldn't catch up, and I couldn't speed up my brain so I could understand people, and so that was pretty tricky.
Yeah.
And then when I went home, I had no strength whatsoever. I mean, if I sat and brushed my teeth, I had to take a nap. Oh. And then I had to get up and do something else, then take a nap. And that's how much energy I had. It was just a tiny bit for a few small seconds, and I had to rest some more. And when you have small kids, how can you function that way? Right. That's nearly impossible. So that was a challenging time.
So did the doctors do an MRI or CAT scan or anything to see the damage that had been done? Did you have any idea?
Yeah. Okay. We had no idea that this was going to happen, but we did have scans done after the stroke, and they they said that the right side of my brain was totally gray. That scan came out gray, which means that there's no activity there.
Yeah.
But yet I was walking and talking from the first couple days. So they would look at the scans and they would shake their head and just say, you shouldn't be here. You should not be here. And I said, well, I am. I don't know what to say. But I knew from that moment on that God had done a mighty work in me, and that he'd saved me for something important or special, or just special for me to do. I knew that that he was there in a miraculous kind of a way, because without him, I wouldn't have made it out of my bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a miracle that it was on a Sunday when my husband was actually home, not at work at 5 o'clock in the morning. He was home. He wasn't outside like he is on Saturdays. He was inside getting ready to go to church, and that was exactly where he needed to be then, because if he hadn't been there, I'd just be laying there, possibly dead in front of my kids.
Yeah.
So that in itself was a huge, huge miracle. And my husband, I'm very thankful that he was there too, to do what he did, to make the phone calls and to help everything go as smoothly as it did go. He was pretty freaked out.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know anybody who wouldn't be. Like, that's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that first stroke, did you know how much your life was going to be different? Could the doctors, predict, the effects that it was going to have on you?
We did some scans about 8 months later. We had some brain memory testing done.
Okay.
And it was like 6 or 8 hours full of testing that I had to do over a period of 2 weeks or something. And I had to do all these different kinds of tests for your memory and for your fine motor skills. And what I got out of that whole experience was a wake-up call to myself. Like, I had been telling myself that I'm going to get myself right back to how I was prior to the stroke. I was going to get myself back to who I was before. And I kept telling myself that, and I was just in a horrible amount of denial. I was struggling with the kids. I was drowning in them,
Yeah.
and just couldn't pull myself out of that. I didn't want to ask for much help, although I had some help with the kids during the week, but I didn't want to ask it for any more, because I thought, if I can't do this, I mean, how can I, if I can't take care of my own kids, how can I function if I can't do this? So then about 8 months later, we did this testing, and every time I had to do something, I had to do it on the right side of my body first, which was my unaffected side. And then I had to do it on my left side, which used to be my dominant side. I was left-handed prior to this. So here I'm struggling with my left hand, which is my dominant side, and I'm doing everything so much slower, so much harder on that side. And all I can see then is the difference between the right side and the left side. And I'm seeing how weak the left side is. And so I'm getting so frustrated as this testing is going on, because I'm seeing the damage like right in front of me. I'm just seeing it. It manifests itself. And so then we did the memory testing, and then we had to go back and meet with him. And he says, listen, I know you were smart before. I know you graduated magna cum laude from college, but now your IQ is 82. And that was really devastating for me, because I think somehow I never really actually subconsciously thought this, but I guess I put a lot of stock in my intelligence, I guess, along the way, because I could write, I could do a lot of intellectual type things, I guess. I wasn't, top of the pack or anything, but I always could hold my own as far as having intelligent conversations with people and keeping up with that kind of stuff. And I guess it was sort of kind of a pride issue with me. I mean, my husband says that it isn't, because he doesn't remember me ever talking about my intelligence being a big deal, but I kind of do feel like it really was inside of me. Yeah. So that was a blow to hear that it was 82. I mean, that's mildly retarded, I think, that's at that level. So when I left there, that day was probably the worst day since the stroke actually happened that I've had since. I mean, it was a devastating day, not because I lost anything major, but because I wasn't who I was before.
Right.
And I had to actually get out of the denial stage and deal with the fact that I have to say goodbye to who I was and just grieve the loss of that person who's not ever coming back.
Yeah.
And like, so the old me is gone, and now this new person has to show up and do something. Like, what are you going to do that's any better than the last person? It was just a big struggle. It was really, really super, super hard for me. And I know it could have been so much worse. And I think and I'm hearing myself as I'm saying this, like I'm already apologizing for myself for like having those thoughts. And I shouldn't really do that. But, like I feel like I need to apologize every time I say that something wasn't the way I wanted it to go. And then I feel like I need to say, well, it could be so much worse. Everyone knows it can always be worse. I don't need to really say that all the time. So apologize.
No. The truth is, it could always be worse, but the truth is what you went through was huge. And you really did have to, like you said, like grieve losing the self that you knew, that you had been with for, your whole life until that point. So that's huge. Yeah.
And I came to appreciate certain things about the experience that I'm actually super, super glad it happened to me, because it has created in me like a much kinder heart. I'm much more compassionate for people when they go through things. I feel like the empathy just pours out of me sometimes. I wish it would just stop. But, sometimes I'm like emotional sponge, and I would just suck up everything that's going on around me. But that's actually a pretty good thing if it happens to you, as opposed to being hard-hearted.
Right.
I'd rather be extra soft than extra hard.
Yeah.
So I guess if we can choose.
Yeah.
But, So
when you were going through that, like as you were leaving the hospital that day, like realizing that you were never going to be who you were before, like what kind of conversations were you having with the Lord at that point?
I wasn't even thinking that way. I was thinking, all right, God, me and you are going to get me back to how I was. We're going to have to just hunker down and figure this out and get me. That's what I did that for about 8 months, and it was crazy. But yeah, it wasn't until I had that meeting with that doctor that I actually had an honest conversation with God and told him, listen, what am I supposed to do? I don't know who I am anymore. Like in circles, I don't know who I am. Am I the person who laughs at jokes, or am I the person that tells the jokes? Who am I? I don't know who I was as a kid, so how do I know who I am now? Like, how can I figure that out? And he kept saying, in the songs that I would listen to, and the verses I would read, he would say, renew your mind, renew your mind. And I would think to myself, all right, that's cute. That's a verse. That's cute. That's nice. But it was actually such a wise little word from God, because that's what he asks us to do in the Bible. Yet at the same time, he gave me the renewal of my mind with me not really having to do anything. He just took care of that for me and renewed my mind all by himself. And it was kind of neat that way that he did that. But it was definitely a challenge, but I see so many good things that have come out of that whole ordeal. It's amazing.
Wow. So what you're saying is basically you were, excuse me, through that experience with the stroke, like you just got like a fresh brain, basically. As far as like spiritual,
brand new brain.
Yeah, wow. That's like an amazing perspective, a great way to think of it. Instead of being bitter, you're like, okay, like here I go. Yeah. New me.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that's kind of where the name of the blog came from, back to the beginning. I feel like I'm starting over again, and and getting to try things for the very first time all over again, sort of, experiences, make memories with my kids that I can't remember having done with my family. I get to start over that way and just make these new memories that are brand new for me. And that's pretty cool, I guess, when you think about it. But another wonderful thing that I got out of this is because I listened to a lot of Sarah Groves, and she did a song, I think it was Open My Hands, and it was the song, and she included a devotional reading, and she did a commentary. She talked about the song, and she said, there's a verse, Psalm 84:11, that says, he will withhold no good thing from those who walk uprightly. And she said that Charles Spurgeon then wrote this thing about how can we say that when lots of people that walk uprightly don't have wealth. They don't have any health. They don't have any acknowledgement in this world. They don't have any of the things that we call good things on this planet. And it's because the good things from God are not the good things that are of this earth. It's the good things of God are peace, joy, gentleness, knowing that we're going to see Jesus one day. Those are the good things that come from God. They can't come from any place else but from Him. Yeah. And so, like, that thought has gotten me from the beginning of the trials of my life, which is before the stroke, up until this very day. Like, I always think about that. These are the good things of God, not the things of the world. The world strives after popularity, after prosperity, health, all those things. But that is not what I should be striving for. Those are earthly things that will disappear in but a blink of an eye. Yeah. I'd rather have gentleness. I'd rather have peace. I'd rather have love.
Yeah, that's great.
So
how long after your initial stroke did you have a second one?
It was about 6 months after I had my second one. It was much smaller, didn't cause as much damage to me or to any part of my brain, but it did cause me to have surgery again and had a stent put in my carotid artery to keep it from dissecting again. Okay. So that was the second stroke, and then that's when I got news that I would probably keep having these for the rest of my life, either small ones or massive ones. So that really challenged me quite a bit because I would get so scared that I really didn't want to get out of bed some days. I would think, how can I live every day knowing that this could be my last day on this earth? How can I get up and just carry on like nothing's wrong, like everything's fine? How can I do that every day? How can I live every day knowing this could be my last day? But in the question was the actual answer. You just have to live every day like it's your last day. Yeah. Like that's what I had to do. I had to come to the realization that living was a risk for anyone. That's a risk. And people say, well, we all none of us know when our last day is. Yes, that's true, but I know my days are numbered. Very, very distinctly. That I know that they may possibly be less than many other people's days, and that's the fear part that sets in. And I have to keep telling myself, you only have this day anyway. None of us have any more days than this day, really, in front of us. So you have to just pour into the day as much as you can, and then let it go, let it be what it is, and start over the next day if you have another one. But don't leave any regrets on the table. Don't leave anything unsaid that you don't want unsaid. I've had several bouts with nearly dying. I mean, when I had my hysterectomy, I had emergency surgery the next day for internal bleeding, and I remember telling everyone in my life goodbye. I was saying, I love you to everyone. Don't give up in life. Do this. Don't take care of my kids. I was saying goodbye to everybody, and that's how real it really is for me. I mean, I don't want there to be any unsaid things. I always want to make sure everyone knows that I love them and care about them and want what's best for them, and so, and that's a good thing.
Yes. And I was actually on your blog reading a little bit today, and you said you wrote that you have almost a checklist that you go through at the end of each day, do I have any unforgiveness? Is there anything I should say? Should I have been kinder to somebody? Yeah. I thought that was, what else is on that list?
Is there anything I didn't try?
Okay, yeah.
Something that I didn't try today, then I'll have to try tomorrow or the next, And that's actually a much freer way to live my life anyway than it was before, because before I don't think that I try to make things better right away. I would just kind of sit on things and just let them ruminate and let them grow on their own or whatever, and not really take care of conflict with people right away. I never wanted to face anyone that way. I would just kind of hide it. But now I just try to get everything out in the open as much as I can, so that I don't have to feel guilty if something happens, so they don't have to feel guilty if something happens either, because there's always that. If something happens and they didn't talk to me and I didn't address them, I didn't come up to them and say, hey, what's wrong? Then that's on them. That pain is on them. And I don't want that for anybody, either. Yeah. So
how many strokes have you had total?
The last time that I counted was 12. I haven't counted for about the last 5 months or something. I'm sure there were others. So it's probably higher than 12.
So do you recognize, like, are there symptoms that start happening, like, before, like you can sort of tell that it's coming on, or is it just completely sudden?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You get disoriented a little bit, and I start to stutter, and I can't really talk very well. I mean, that happens anyway with me at night because I get really tired, so I start to stutter. But it'll happen during the morning and the daytime. If I'm going to have a small stroke, I'll be stuttering, and I will have a hard time getting words out of my mouth. One stroke that I had took all the strength out of my left leg. I had to use a cane for about 5 months afterwards. They affect you differently, and different strokes affect you different ways. But there's always a level of disorientation, a level of not being able to talk right. Sometimes you can't see very good, or they're always a little bit different. I never had one that was exactly the same as the last one, but I always can tell when they're coming.
Yeah. And then do you have to go to the hospital every time by ambulance, or do you have a new system, since it happens so frequently?
Yeah, I have my own unique system. I call a friend and I just tell him what's going on with me, and I'll tell him, I'll talk to him so he knows what I'm sounding like. If I start to sound worse, he'll call 911 or whatever friend I choose to call or whatever. And I will come and unlock the back door. As soon as I start to feel weird, I'll unlock the back door so if someone has to get me, they don't have to break the door to get in. They can just open the door and come and get me. Yeah. I don't go to the hospital anymore. It's a waste of money, and I just they don't do anything for you anyway, because sometimes you can't see the new strokes on the scans because of the damage from the first one. Okay. They can't see any other damage, so they just say, well, you had an episode or a stroke-like symptoms or whatever, so then they don't do much if it's a little one. But I try to make sure that I can catch it. If it would get worse, I have a plan in place to make sure that I get to the hospital safely. Yeah. But yeah, I just wing it, I guess.
That's pretty impressive.
Well,
Do you, do they have a reason why these are happening? Is it genetic? Is it what do the doctors say about, why you're so prone to these strokes?
The last I heard, that I think that they're playing around with the diagnosis of fibromuscular dysplasia, which is a narrowing of the arteries. Okay. Because I now have a dissection of my carotid artery on the left side that kind of started to heal on its own I think I discovered it maybe 2 years ago or a year ago. But it was started to heal on its own, so they didn't put a stent in, they didn't fix anything because it was healing by itself. But they're toying with that idea. The last that I remember them saying anything about it was that. But they said that I could go to a special hospital in Ohio or Cleveland or I don't know, other places and get it checked out and research this thing and figure out what to do. But I have decided not to go forward in that way, just because if I'm trying to let go of the stroke, if I'm trying to release myself from the burden of saying, "Oh, I had a stroke. I'm a stroke survivor." I don't want that always on top of my head all the time. Yeah. I want to be able to someday move past it, move forward, and not just be the stroke survivor person or whatever. So if I'm trying to move on, how can I do that if I'm hanging on to the diagnosis, if I'm hanging on to research and studies and all that? I don't know how I can hang on, let go by hanging on. That's how I decided to look at it. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen, regardless of if I know what the symptoms are, what the study is, or what the diagnosis is. It's going to happen anyway. So I guess there comes a point in time where you have to really actually put yourself in God's hands. Not just, put yourself in God's hands. You actually have to put yourself in his hand and let it go and take your hand off of it and just let him take control of the situation. And you can't do it if you're holding on. So I guess that's where I'm at right now with it. I don't know. It kind of changes. I look at it differently some days. After I talk to someone, they'll say, "Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way," but that's kind of the philosophy I'm sticking with right now. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. If that's how you feel, you need to be I understand. I understand about
letting go by letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Well, for so many years, I was so paralyzed with fear over the possibility of dying,
Yeah.
and just not knowing that the next day I could die. And I can't live like that anymore. I refuse to go back to those days and have all that fear hanging over my head. And I don't think I'm healthy enough or spiritually strong enough to deal with that and still have the same mindset that I do have. Like,
Yeah.
I can't just say, okay, I'm just going to give it to you, God, but I'm going to go and research this and have my brain tested by 18,000 new doctors every month until we can find something that's wrong with me. I don't see how I could do that and still be carrying on down that path. I couldn't really trust him with it if I had it in my hands. I don't think it goes that way. I can't think of it going that way anyway.
So what would you say the hardest thing about your whole experience has been? What's the most difficult thing for you?
I would say just based on how much I have to deal with it, I think the hardest part would be not being 100% for my kids, not being the mom that I wish I could be for them, and having that picture of who that is in my head still, and not being able to live up to that is very hard for me. It kind of breaks my heart on a regular basis because I want to be this great mom, not a perfect mom. I know I'll never be that, but a great mom, like ones that can keep up with her kids and have fun with them most of the time. But sometimes I don't have the energy. My brain will only do so much in so much time of a day, and then I have to rest, and I have to rest my brain, I have to rest my body, and sometimes that doesn't line up with their schedule, and it creates disappointment sometimes with the kids, and now I'm starting to think it really doesn't disappoint them as much as it disappoints me. I think they can adjust to pretty much anything that's going on, but it's just my own picture of what kind of mother I wanted to be, not coming true for me. And it's just disheartening. And the only reason I say it's the worst symptom is just because it's the one that I feel the most often, because every day you have with your kids. So, I feel it more often than I feel any of the other things that I usually feel.
Yeah.
But
I was actually reading on your blog today, you wrote kind of a post about that, about you thought you were going to go back to work after your son was born, and then you had your massive stroke, and then it completely, altered the trajectory of your life. Not to mention, obviously you couldn't work anymore. And you said, I actually wrote it down because I thought it was so good, but you were worried about the things that you just said, you felt like you weren't enough and you weren't useful because you were just, like you said, had to rest a lot. You couldn't be as active as you wanted to be. And then, but you wrote this in your post: if we do the next right thing all the time, we will always be in God's perfect will, which means we will always be exactly where He wants us to be. And I just appreciate that so much, because there are so many times in our lives when we can't be we can't be it all, right now I'm thinking about, I have several friends who have newborns, and that's a time in your life when you have to say no to so many things. But if that's where God, has you, then that's all you can do, and that's exactly what you should be doing. And so I don't know, I just thought that perspective from you with your physical limitations just is really eye-opening, to say I can't do a lot of stuff, but this is where God has me, and that's the best place for me to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I still struggle with feeling useful. That's something I do struggle with quite a bit, because I want to make someone's life better all the time. I just want to jump in and help and help, a church ministry, whatever. I want to get in there and help. But sometimes I realize that my focus is not where it should be, because if I'm thinking about everyone else and not thinking about my kids and saving energy for them, then I'm damaging the closest thing I have to a ministry in front of me, And my opportunity to share the gospel with the world is through my kids. Primarily, that's what I should be focusing on. And sometimes it doesn't seem like it's enough for me to do that. In my head, in my heart, I feel like that's what everyone's supposed to do. That's not what I want to do. I want to do more. That should be enough. If it isn't, then we have a problem, you know?
Yeah. But I don't think you're alone in that. I think we all feel like we wish we could do more. You know, I think everybody's in that boat. Yeah. So.
I do too. I have a friend who has MS, and she may soon have to use a wheelchair, and she's been struggling so much with that because she's like, I don't want to accept that I have to be in this chair because I want to be running with my kids. I want to be playing with them. And someone told her that is how you'll be able to play with them.
Yeah.
You have a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Now you can go with them. You can run with them. You can be with them now. So that was a really neat way for her to look at that, you know, in a positive way.
So I should have asked this question earlier. Do you have no like long-term memory, or sorry, like memory, like past memories, like before your stroke?
I can remember little bits from high school and college, but nothing really before that point.
Wow.
Now, occasionally a memory will come back, or someone talking to someone, something will spark a memory, but those are the only ones I have. Those little things that just come to me in a moment or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about something, and then memory will shoot back, and I'll have to ask someone if it's true, if it really happened, from just imagining things. But yeah, I don't remember much of high school, and I guess that's probably a good thing. But you know,
I think a lot of us wish we didn't remember high school that much.
I know. So yeah. And that's a tough thing for me at Christmas time, because that's when all your memories are kind of made, and they last and they stay with you forever. And it's not have any of those. Yeah, I'm making new ones with my kids, but you kind of just wish you had that piece of yourself that connects you to your past. And
yeah.
Instead of feeling like you're an orphan in this world, you know, that's kind of what it boils down to, feeling like you feel very alone. When I still haven't met a stroke survivor who lost long-term memory. I still have not met one.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me, but yeah, I'm the only one so far that I've talked to. But it's a very kind of lonely feeling, but I know one day I'll have all those memories opened up, and I'll be able to see everything that ever happened, and I won't even care about it when I can, because I'll be in heaven, and I won't care about looking at any of that stuff, but it'll be available for me if I feel like it.
Yeah.
So
this is Heart Lessons, the Heart Lessons podcast. So what would you say throughout your whole stroke experience and just walking through this with the Lord, what would you say your heart lesson is that he just keeps like bringing back to you, and that has carried you through, that your heart, like kind of your heart song, I guess?
That's actually very easy for me to answer.
Oh, good.
It comes with a little bit of a story, if that's
sure.
okay.
Yes, please.
Before I got married, I had a large tumor on my ovary. It was the size of a small baby. They had to take it out and take the ovary and everything out. So I was left with one ovary. And so I wasn't married. I didn't get married till I was 34. So I'm looking at all my friends around me having babies, and I'm thinking, well, if I ever meet someone, I don't know if I'll even be able to have a child, because here I only have the one ovary. I don't know. And then I started getting cysts on the remaining ovary. And every time I had surgery, they would wake me up, and I would be so afraid to ask, did you take my last ovary? Because I was so afraid I wouldn't be able to have children. And so that was a freaky thing. But then when I met Jeremy, then 2 months later, we ended up getting pregnant with Macy.
Okay.
And I remember singing in the choir at the time, and we were singing, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning, new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, O God. Great is your faithfulness. And that song just kind of surged out of me, and I started sobbing because I was just so happy and so full of joy that I was going to have this baby that I always really wanted to have. And my dreams were coming true, and I was so happy then, so full of joy. And then 2 years later, I had a miscarriage, and we were singing that same song on a Sunday. And I found that it was very easy to sing that song still, because his steadfast love never changes. Ours changes. Our love changes. Our amount that we can give anyone or anything always changes. It fluctuates based on our feelings, based on our mood. based on all kinds of different things. But his love is so very steadfast. It never changes. His mercies are new every day. And I had to carry that lesson to say, if you can sing that when you're pregnant with Macy, you have to sing that when you're not pregnant with this baby anymore. You have to be able to sing this all the time. And so every time I get like discouraged or frustrated or upset or sad, I have to sing that song because it's always true. Yeah. It will never not be true. It's not about my feelings. It's not saying I feel like giving you praise. I feel like worshiping you because that's what I want to do. No. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. There's facts. They're just facts. I'm saying facts. And they encourage me after a while. After I hear them, like there's a song we do right now that says, you are good. You are good. Hallelujah. You are good. Those are the whole words of the song. Just those five or six little words. And I love the song because if you sing it enough, if you sing it over, you can't help but to believe that's the truth. He is good. You are good. And, but when you say it to yourself a bunch of times, it can either sound stupid or it can sound more like the truth every single time that you sing it. So that's kind of why I hold on to that song so deeply, because if I can have joy in a moment, that's not why I'm singing about the steadfast love of the Lord. It's not because I have this baby, because I can sing it when I'm not pregnant. I can sing it when I lose a baby. I can sing it after I have a stroke. I can sing it at any time because it's always true. His steadfast love will never cease. His mercies will never end. And that's my song.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I know when we were walking through, my husband said, if we believed, if we say we love the Lord and that we believe in him, then we have to say that when things are bad. We have to believe, if we believe that and walk that when life is going well, then we also have to do that when life, is going a little awry. And that's kind of where faith, that is the definition of faith, or that's the exercising your faith is actually like taking it a step further and saying you're good even though I don't see the good, maybe I don't feel the good,
believing what I can't see. Exactly.
Pami, have there been any resources that have helped you, like any books that you've loved, or anything like that, any particular writers that you've been inspired by?
Let's see. I can't really read a whole bunch of books anymore because I don't have the comprehension level to get through them. But they're like sometimes I'll just take an author that I've heard was really good and I'll read his quotes. Because in that is a lot of the truth about what he's writing about. It's all boiled down to a simple quote. So sometimes like Brennan Manning, I love pretty much everything that he's ever read that I can digest. I like him. I like his writings a lot. They're very, he talks from a place of pain, and I always appreciate when people do that. And Johnny Erickson Tada is also one of my favorites. Her book, A Place of Healing, pretty much turned my life into a different direction a few years ago. It really spoke to my heart. It was a really timely read for me. At the right time, I read it, and it encouraged me so much. It was a great book. She's pretty much the best author I can think of right now. So I'll stop while I'm ahead.
Yeah. And then you also have your own blog that you write on. What's the blog address that you have? Your website address?
It's PamiJoSword.com. Or .wordpress.com or .com. I don't know which one it is, but it looks like it says Pami Jo's Word, but it's not. It's Pami Jo's Sword. Oh, okay. I always thought it was Word. I thought it was Pami Jo's Word. Yeah, that's why I wanted to somehow change that or make the S capital, but I couldn't figure that out, so I just left it be.
No, that's
But
good.
The title of the blog is Back to the Beginning, and it's kind of sort of my stroke story, but more lessons that I keep learning and things that have to do with the Word of God, and I want to encourage other people to get into the Word because I've realized that I used to study it all the time. I knew pretty much I knew a lot about the Bible back before my stroke, and now I struggle like everyone else does. So now, like, I try to encourage other people to get into the Bible, because that's where life is.
Yeah.
It's not really any place else but there. You have to go there to get life. That's the only way to get it. Sorry. So, like, I want to encourage people to get into the Word and to try to study a verse at a time or a word at a time. Any little bit that you can do will greatly help you if you are applying it to your life and letting it sink into your heart a little bit. It can do wonders, and it's really an awesome thing that I've done little studies about little verses, and you take every different word in the verse and you emphasize it more than the other words, and you look at that and you study that way. Like, be still. What's the verse that I did? Be still, my soul. I forget what the verse is exactly, but the verse, when you take every word and you study that word in context, out of context, it changes everything about that verse for you. Like, it makes it alive for you. So, like, those are some cool things that I really want to start doing more of in my blogs, to encourage people to keep reading and studying. But, yep.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I know you've said that you have comprehension issues, but I think your blog is wonderful, and you always have, like, such amazing things to say, and it's so encouraging. So, yeah, I think it's just a testament to, like, the Lord's goodness that, I don't know, you're still able to have the gift of reaching people, even though you might feel like you don't. But I think it's pretty evident, at least, what I can see online. So.
Well, I feel like God gave me a couple gifts many, many years ago, and one was playing the trumpet, and the other one is writing, and neither one of those gifts has He taken from me. He's let me still use both of them for His glory, for His honor, and I'm just so very thankful that I didn't have to sacrifice those two for the sake of the stroke or anything, the reason that I still can have those. But I do know that I need to hold them loosely, because I can't cling to them tighter than I cling to Him. Yeah. So I have to, like, be willing to let them go if that needs to happen. But I'm so thankful that I still am able to do that. And I never really wrote for Him before I wrote for my job. I had to write court reports and this kind of stuff, and I loved it. I love to write. I've always enjoyed that. So to be able to use it for Him in such a personal way, and know that the words that I write come straight from Him, because I can't even proofread anything. So I know that it must be Him doing it, because I have no control over what I'm writing, really. Yeah. So it's awesome that I still have those things.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love reading it. I've been blessed by your words, so it's great.
Oh, goodness.
Well, this has been so wonderful. I thank you so much for sharing your story, and I don't take it lightly when people, like, share, the deepest parts of their hearts with me here on the podcast. So thank you so much for being willing, and it's just great to chat with you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
What I couldn't help but notice while chatting with Pami was that for somebody with limited comprehension and communication abilities, she has so much good to say, and she says it so well. I think God knew we needed people like Pami to help align our thinking more to His truths. I think my favorite thing that she said, or that she talked about, was the list that she goes through at the end of every day, with the reality of strokes just being part of her kind of everyday life expectation. She really doesn't know if she will be guaranteed tomorrow. And so she said at the end of every day, there's a list of questions that she asks herself. And so I'm just going to read some of her from her list as she posted on her blog. Is there anything I need to fix or set right? Is there anyone who needs my forgiveness? Is there anyone I need to forgive? Is there anything I don't want to leave unsaid? Is there anyone who needs some comfort today? Is there anyone who needs a kind gesture? Is there anything new I should attempt today? And this week, I'd like to just ask you, what's on your list? What questions would you ask yourself as you laid in bed, unsure if you'd get a chance for tomorrow? Because if we're all really honest with ourselves, none of us are sure, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. It's such a humbling perspective, but maybe if we, end every day with a list like this, maybe it would just help us a little bit more fully and a little bit more aligned with how God wants us to be thinking about how to be used on a day-to-day basis. So if you think of any questions go ahead and send them to me. Maybe share on Instagram, share on my Facebook page, email me. I would love to hear from you. What's on your list? And I'll be thinking this week about what's on mine, and maybe we can share it together. And if you're interested in connecting with Pami, her website, like she said, is pamijosword.wordpress.com. And I will post that in the show notes. If you go to sarahrieke.com, you'll be able to find the link to her blog, as well as the other resources that she's mentioned. And don't forget that you can also connect with me this week. I'm on Facebook, Sarah Rieke Writer, and you can find me on Instagram, Sarah_Rieke. You can email me, sarahjrieke@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for tuning into the Heart Lessons podcast. And as always, I hope you were able to come away with a heart lesson of your own to help you draw closer to the Lord.